Hello, this is me again. I am a patriot. Well, I decided to start from the beginning. Now, these are my words. And I always identify in my documents when I quote somebody, and I do it properly. I went to college. I took a lot of writing classes. I do know how to write, or at least I try to know how. So, I'm writing this for my son. I dedicate it to my son, Master Sergeant Matthew Norris Miller. He had cerebral palsy, but he was a hero in the Army. He died due to his injuries from being in Afghanistan. So these are one of his dog tags right here. It's for him. I am a patriot. This is the first page. I am an American citizen, born and bred. I went to Catholic schools for most of my elementary years, and I believe I received a very good education from the private schooling. I was enrolled into a regular public high school for my final 12 years of education. I lived in the Chicagoland area for a good portion of my teenage and early adult life, but I was born in Kansas City, Missouri in 1953. When I was in the second grade, my family moved to Ames, Iowa for my father's new position at the University in Ames, and we lived there for about 5 years. My family was a good Catholic family for a while. My parents had 6 children, as they did not believe in birth control of any kind. We ate non-meat products every Friday, and we went to church every single Sunday. I'm the oldest of those 6 children, 4 girls and 2 boys. We were like every other family in this world. We had our own dysfunctional activities. But I believe every single family has that, no matter what. And no matter how perfect a person thinks their family is. It is purely my opinion, and based on my years of dealing with many other people on a very personal level. Throughout my life, I've been privileged to have the opportunity to work spiritually with other people. Through that activity, along with my own work with spiritual advisors, I have learned a lot about families and myself, for that matter. I am not a psychologist, but I've had some unorthodox training in helping others find their way in the spiritual walk of life. I was taught very early that I do not make statements or write anything that I have not researched and authenticated prior to making the statement. So that is what I do and have done all my life. I am going to speak the truth in this document as well, and truthfully as I am able to do so. I also want to make something else very clear right now. This document reflects my thoughts, my feelings, and my own ideas. This document is not your facts or your ideas or anything to do with your feelings. So if you choose to read it or hear it, please keep in mind that this is simply me extending my rights for freedom of speech in this country. Second page. I had 3 children. The oldest, I felt the need to give him a good, loving home when he was 7 months old, and so I did not raise him. The other 2 children were the result of my union with a different man, and I was married to him for about 10 years. I raised my 2 children to believe and trust that they could do anything they wanted and be anything they wanted in this great country of ours, as long as they truly wanted it, whatever it is or was, as the case may have been. One of the main reasons I really instilled that truth in their hearts was because my son had cerebral palsy. My son dealt with that beautifully, and it was very difficult to even tell there was anything different about him. But he had worked very hard to be just like the other kids. He was amazing. My daughter completed school receiving almost straight A's. She had it made for college, and I was ready to put her through it with no problem. She made a different choice, and I am open to that. She wanted to be a wife and mother, even at a very young age, so she married and had 3 beautiful girls. My daughter is teaching and showing those beautiful little girls all about freedom of choice and what they can accomplish. So I am very proud of what she is doing. My son joined the Army right after September 9, 2001. He was appalled and in shock that his beautiful country that I had taught him was so wonderful and free with all the choices he could ever imagine and want had been attacked. He also was shocked that something happened in his homeland, because the last time that happened was at Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941. The towers in New York City had been bombed before in the parking garage, but that didn't affect him like this did, with so many innocents dying for what? The world may never forget the day the towers in New York were brought down by the blood and lives I've lost my place, I'm sorry, of many people in 2 aircraft, actually 3 aircraft, one fateful morning on September 9, 2001, 9/11. And in reality, it was 4 aircraft, but the 4th aircraft was full of heroes. All of them were heroes. Everyone. In fact, everyone that died that day was a hero in my heart. These people called for help, but their help died with them. We call for help by dialing 911. We may never know who is truly responsible for this horribly tragic affair. I don't know what to believe at this point. But I do know and truly believe that there may have been a way to stop this. This is pure conjecture on my part. I have no proof and do not profess to have any. I must rely on what our media tells me, but frankly, I don't put much stock in what our media says. Page 3. My children were not born when I had my first taste of patriotic shock. My family was very much behind our president in the early 60s, and on November 22, 1963, he was brutally shot and killed during a motorcade for re-election in Dallas, Texas. Since I attended a Catholic school, we were let out and had at least one day, if not more, to mourn our fallen leader. I was in the 4th grade when this tragic event occurred, and I actually met President Kennedy before he became president at a speech he gave in Kansas City, where we still lived. And I was a very young little girl, but I remember meeting him. My father had me on his shoulders. It made a very traumatic and life-changing experience for me, even at that very young age. I don't even know why I remember it, but I do very well. I felt my father's happiness, and it passed through me too. I was excited and happy because my father was so... I knew in my little mind that it meant something very important to him. When he died, I cried and really felt the seriousness of the situation, even at that young age. Deep in my heart, I knew things were going to change, but I had no idea how much and how severe. Now we're on page 4. After President Kennedy was assassinated, Vice President Lyndon Johnson was sworn in. I'm very sorry. My computer keeps interrupting me. After President Kennedy was assassinated, Vice President Lyndon Johnson was sworn in on the plane that flew all the dignitaries back to Washington, D.C. I have heard a lot of conflicting stories concerning the decisions that were made about the Vietnam War, and I have that in parentheses. And I emphasize the word war because it was an undeclared war. I always asked, why are we there? I was always told we were asked for our military expertise, but that changed very rapidly after President Kennedy was shot. Suddenly, many young men were drafted into the armed forces, and many of them went to their deaths over the politicians' game. I call it that because, in my humble opinion, it was exactly that. They were only interested in one thing, to show the world our might and our power. At first, the American people fell for it, but then a new generation emerged. Power to the people became a phrase that we all heard, said, and understood. We young people began to grow up and did not understand why we as a country were doing something completely illegal. It was an undeclared war, but yet my friends were dying. I was a senior in high school, and we had debate teams over the quote war. I was always on the not a war side. I refused to be on the yes side. I did my homework, and I fought the fight. I felt empowered, excited, and ready to do my part, whatever had to be done to end this terrible travesty. I lived in the Chicagoland area when they had the 1968 Democratic Convention. Oh, did I want to be a part of all that, but my parents would never allow me to participate in something like that. It was so close. But it was wonderful because we were showing our muscles. We were going to let the politicians know that we, part of my generation, had had enough. The war must end. That wasn't the only problem either. Some of the politicians were being scandalized on purpose. That the police army was ready to go, and they injured many people who were extending their power of speech as dictated in our Constitution. I believe that it was at this time the media became a part of the attack, a politician game. All of a sudden, we weren't having debates and conversation on issues, we were having attack the candidates. They had to be perfect. No divorce, no extramarital affairs, no drinking problems, no problems that any normal human being might have at some time in their life. No, our president had to be absolutely perfect in every way. This mode of thinking has not stopped at all. It's become worse and worse, and now it's completely out of hand. I almost feel the media enjoys attempting to dig up some kind of dirt on someone, but in reality, each party is feeding them, and it's a game. And that is page 5, and I'm going to end it there. And I'll continue it right there, and then we'll be getting into some really good stuff. So this is part 2 of I Am a Patriot. And I am a patriot all the way. Thank you.